Thank you. Hello, everybody. We are going to call this meeting to order now. It is 7:04 p.m. on December 29, 2022, and this is a public meeting of the City of Portland Police Accountability Commission Subcommittee on Access to Information. I'm Victoria Lara, and I will be your facilitator today. If the Spanish language interpreters, Gaby or Luis, can please give the information on the Spanish language interpretation?
Hola, buenas noches. Son las 7:04 de la noche y estamos dando inicio oficial a nuestra reunión. Esta es una reunión oficial de la Comisión de Responsabilidad Policial de la ciudad de Portland y tenemos interpretación disponible en los canales para tanto español como sistema de señas.
Muchas gracias, Luis. The city also offers ASL interpretation, which is being provided by Andrea, that she's here, and Amanda, she's here too. Please pin their video feed to see their interpretation throughout the meeting. The closed captioning is turned on in Zoom as another means of assistance. But please note that this is an automatic captioning services and it is not always accurate. The city supports access to meetings of the Police Accountability Commission and can provide other language support as well. Please email in advance of future public meetings, either as a response to a public meeting notice or directly to policeaccountability@portlandoregon.gov to ask for other access assistance, including interpretation into other languages. This meeting is a public meeting subject to City of Portland Administrative Code and Oregon State Law and is being recorded. For this meeting, the chat function is enabled for commission members to communicate with each other. Members of the public will be able to ask questions using Zoom's Q&A feature as the commissioners are presenting and or discussing things. If attendees have questions, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A. We hope to use this feature to help guide our conversation during this meeting and future meetings and agenda topics. We'd like to be clear that not all questions will be answered during the meeting, but if answered, both the question and answer will be visible to you and will become part of the meeting record. To access this feature, just click the Q&A icon in the middle of your screen. Now I will pass it to the co-chair, Obi, for the land acknowledgement.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. Thank you. The PAC currently uses the land acknowledgement on display at City Hall, which is, we acknowledge that the rivers, lakes, streams, and lands of the lower Willamette River rest upon the occupied territories of the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, Chinook, Tualatin, Calapia, Molalla, and many other tribes. We recognize the many villages, traditions, cultures, and relationships that existed along the river since time immemorial. We recognize these tribes stewarded these lands and rivers since time immemorial for future generations. We recognize and undertake responsibility for the destruction of the river and land, of traditional food sources, sacred places, and multifaceted ways of life. We acknowledge the economic and social values that enabled the harm to the river, including systemic racism, classism, and other systems of oppression that perpetuated harm against Black, Indigenous, and immigrant communities along the river. With this acknowledgement, we commit to honoring and learning from the past and working towards a more equitable and sustainable future for the lower Willamette River. We commit to seeking solutions that acknowledge the inequities of past socioeconomic policies and the harm done to people and our relationships to these lands and waters.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Now we will pass to review our community agreements. And what we'll do is that let time for each member to read and reflect on these community agreements. We have 2 pages. We will have time to review the second page as well. Please go to the second page. Thank you. Now, if we all commit to the following, to follow these community agreements for today's meeting and to gently call in and our college and collaborators if needed. Please, can you raise your thumb? Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I will pass it to the co-chair to discuss the timeline.
Okay, thank you. This meeting is a part of the Police Accountability Commission's powers and duties phase of work, which focuses on the functions of the new system. Future phases of work will develop the form of the new system, as well as how it relates to the rest of city government and the transition plan from our current system to the new one. The Commission will present all proposed changes to the City Council in 2023 for their consideration and approval. This slide shows the outcome documents for the powers and duties phase based on the agenda and scope approved by the Commission. This subcommittee will focus on how the new system will access the information it needs to do its work. This slide is the current project plan for the powers and duties phase of the Police Accountability Commission's work. It will be updated as needed throughout this phase of work. This slide is for the members of the public to be able to understand how the Commission gets from now to the end of the phase, which focuses on identifying areas of agreement among Commission members as to the functions of the new system. Today's meeting is a part of the gold box with the red border near the bottom of the screen. Following today, here are the upcoming meetings of the PAC. Specifically, we'd like to highlight this subcommittee will meet next Thursday, January 5th. The full PAC will have its next meeting on Thursday, January 19th. The Commission is planning a community listening session and Q&A for Tuesday, January 10th. Today's meeting agenda includes hearing reports back from the subcommittee members on the areas of the subcommittee's work that they individually focused on from our last meeting on December 12th through today. It then includes discussions of items for inclusion in the draft areas of agreement. Finally, it will discuss next steps from now through January 5th, which is currently the last scheduled meeting of the subcommittee. The subcommittee will also hear public comment during today's meeting.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Now we're going to hear back. The next thing in the agenda is to hear back from individual subcommittee members based on the areas they each one volunteer from the December 12th meeting. And we have this called in order. If you wanna do it like it is here, is first Commissioner Dan, then Commissioner and Co-Chair Obi and May, then Commissioner May, then Commissioner Tirsa, and at the end, Commissioner Monica. Commissioner Dan, would you like to start?
I guess so. I'm Dan Handelman. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a member of the commission, and I worked with co-chair Obi on the compelling testimony section, and we pulled in information from the city code about how that works now. We pulled in and checked it against the research documents that we had created in the last phase to make sure that we weren't missing or forgetting anything. And we had some lively discussions about ways that we could work on compelling officer testimony if there's some snag in implementing the charter the way it was voted into being by the people of Portland. So I don't know if you want to add anything, Co-Chair Oju.
Sure. Yeah, no, definitely had lively discussion about this. You know, I think with the compelling testimony portion, you need to respect the job of the new board, as well as respect protections and just general state law for everyone involved, state and federal law for everyone involved. So that's something that I'm looking forward to discussing later on with the whole group. But yes, this is I think an important section that a fair amount is taken from what's previously enshrined for IPR and city code, but having a few ideas ourselves as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan and Co-Chair Obi. Now we will go to Co-Chair Obi and Commissioner May for police records.
And thank you. For police records as well, I think very similarly, we were able to look at what IPR had told us in the meeting about the access that they have, as well as the process that they need to get records. And in my opinion, I wanted to focus on efficiency of having access to data or having access to police records, as well as just making it a more of an efficient timeline. It seems that IPR was also trying to move forward in the direction that we're going to eventually want to prescribe. I just wanted to pen a lot of the ideas that they had, as well as the ideas that we had, into actual code versus just thinking of them as ideas. We looked at other cities as well, which have similar systems, and those cities I find were pretty vague about access. They just said, some of these cities said, yes, you have access, but I think we specifically need to spell it out in this case, considering how in-depth our system is and how much we actually went into the research for this. So I think also looking forward to discussion about this as well. I think a fair amount of it is already enshrined in city code, so that won't be too difficult. But then we need to discuss some of the extra steps and hopefully how they relate to state and federal law, as well as access prescribed for certain members of the board, investigators, and staff.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Commissioner May, would you like to add something about police records?
Yes, I did a little bit of research on data and police records, and some of what I found does intersect and applies to both. So first of all, for police records, what we need is something written in policy so that it's clearly defined. So it is also, if it's written, it has to be followed. So we need to also specify that we should have access and determine a time frame, a deadline from the time that we request to the time that we receive. I know that, in my previous work in requesting police records, they sometimes they can take a while, and the most common response that we hear is, well, we're backed up, there's no coverage, it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks. Sometimes urgent requests even take 2 to 3 weeks. It would be very helpful if the staff, the Bureau, commits to helping us by maybe having a staff member that is solely focuses on doing that work or that is a part of the group that helps the committee. You know, one thing that also I thought a lot about was one of the women that came and spoke to our group and said, you know, sometimes they make requests, it takes a really long time. Then they're given like a 500-page investigation file to review. And, you know, it's just not something that they're able to do or keep up. And, you know, I think that really hinders, you know, someone's ability to, you know, effectively do the work. So that is one issue. Another issue is having the city commit and invest to really training individuals to know what, you know, to reading, interpreting, analyzing the data, the reports, some of the information that, you know, we are talking about, how it benefits, you know, committee members to have access to. It's not always cut and dry. It's, you know, sometimes the info that you do see does require a little bit of training and education to be able to understand it. So that's one thing about data and police reports. And the other thing about data that I also found was there are a lot of states in the US that have centralized databases where they keep information on officers that have had misconduct. Currently, what I saw with Pennsylvania is one of the few or only states that forces agencies to do a check on that database, you know, before making a hiring decision. I did not see that any other state forces agencies to do that. And also it's restricted information. The public does not have access to it. And, you know, some states also have it where officers who have not been disciplined but have been investigated for misconduct, they are not they are not on record. So sometimes if someone has a repeated pattern but no discipline you know was taken, they don't show up on there. And so I think that, you know, does cause problems later, especially if individuals have a history, a pattern. I know with some of the work that I've done with background checks, it's really helpful to see and to know, you know, to be able to read information about why a case was dismissed or convicted. Sometimes it's helpful to see what caused, whether, you know, there was a conviction or not, or why there was no discipline. And let me see what else I found. And, you know, we also need agreements with the record holders. What I mean by that is with, so in Oregon with LEDs, with the court, with eCourt, and other entities. And then we also should absolutely require individuals to undergo a criminal history background check prior to accessing confidential and private information. I know a lot of these databases, they have rules set where it prohibits specific people with particular backgrounds from being becoming licensed or certified to use the database or even to access the information. And that is all I have for my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner May. Now we will pass it to Commissioner Tirsa on subpoena powers.
Thank you, Victoria. So I worked on subpoena powers, and I looked at jurisdictions that currently do have the authority to issue subpoenas. And then I also compared with what is currently in city code with or what IPR practices. And so the currently IPR does have subpoena power, but they cannot subpoena a sworn PPB employee, even though they can encourage PPB employees to testify. And then currently there's also, well, from what we heard on the December 12th meeting from IPR, even though city code does say that there should be a penalty for not obeying a subpoena, it sounds like that's actually not taking place. There's no penalty if someone were to fail to obey a subpoena. And then some of the questions that I after working on what I put together are, should all members of the new oversight board have authority to issue a subpoena, and are there any state or federal laws that would prohibit an officer from giving sworn testimony? And then something that I think we should also discuss, and it was also brought up from our last meeting from IPR, is whether the new oversight board should include the city's attorney's office or have the assistance of the city attorney to hold members who do not obey subpoenas accountable through filing something with the appropriate or corresponding court. That's what I have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Tirsa. And now we're gonna pass it to Commissioner May for data.
Oh, I spoke about data when I was giving the report on police records.
Yes, you were, but do you want to add anything or mention anything extra about it?
No, my solutions for data was just really, I'll just reiterate, the city investing and committing to training and working with individuals to make sure that they understand and know what they are reading, accessing, and just having agreements in place where certain rules or things with different record holders don't become a barrier for people to access that, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Also, Co-Chair Obi, would you like to add something about data, or that's?
No, thank you. I agree with Commissioner May about making sure that whether it's data retrieval or using data or having the appropriate retention of data, seems like it might be somewhat out of scope, but having sure the retention of data is appropriate in all phases of an investigation, and making sure there's no reason why investigation that might start and might have to wait for the criminal investigation to take place in those specific small circumstances, that data is still available to investigators and the board to, as best as possible, appropriately do its job. I also added a couple questions too, which were taken from examples of other cities as well, which we can discuss. I think there might be some overlap with other subcommittees or future subcommittees too, but in my research, I just did not want to forget about it and then have another subcommittee think it was done by us and then miss something that would be an opportunity for the board to be more efficient. So thank you.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi and Commissioner May. Now, Commissioner Monica, about body cameras.
Yeah. I sent a document earlier today that I'm just going to pull up on my computer and reference because, I mean, it's messy, it's long. The thing about body cameras that is interesting for me is that we don't have body camera policy in Portland yet, and the Portland Police Bureau is actually in the process of figuring out how to implement it in Portland with the goal to get it started in 2023. Sorry, 2023. My voice is kind of scrappy, sorry. Let me find my document here, 1 second. Again, this is just starting to take place here in Portland. From my research, Portland Police Bureau is going to be having a pilot test. They've picked who their vendor is going to be for storing the footage and for the technology. They're going to be using Axon per their website. So I don't have specific city code to compare to when I'm looking at this. But I did find some really good information from the Leadership Conference Upturn, which was updated in 2017. And they put together a report of 75 different policies from different police bureaus throughout the nation. Their goal was to come up with certain specifics that should be, that per them should be in every policy that monitors body cam usage throughout the nation. And their goals were, let me go found. Oh, I guess let me see. I was looking at my 1 second. Are you guys sharing a screen that I'm not seeing? Oh yeah, thank you. I was looking at my document in another screen. Okay, so and this coalition is a large coalition of civil rights leaders, and I felt it was a very good summary of the things that we would want to have in a body-worn camera policy in the city of Portland. And there's, I believe, 5 goals to it. I don't know if you can go. Yes, there you go. So develop camera policies in public so that the public has access to the policies and how they are put together and how they change over time through consultation with community and reports. Commit to set a narrow and well-defined purpose for which cameras and their footage can be used. So facial recognition, biometric technologies, all those things need to be really well thought of. Specify clear operational policies for recording, retention, and access. So very important to specify when to turn it on, when they can turn it off, what events must always have the camera on, and in what events could they possibly turn it off, and specify that very, very detailed. Important to provide, to have the footage available for accountability. And as you'll look earlier in my research, that appears to be, that may be a barrier in the state of Oregon. It's already written in Oregon statute that these videos have to be unidentified before they're released to the public. And this coalition believes that should not be happening, that would not be ideal. And then there should be a limit and a certain policy as to how long the video can be kept and for which causes. So let's go up a little bit to the beginning, please. And thank you for cleaning this up. This looks much better than when I sent it earlier. I think I covered all of that, and we'll go down. And the other thing that this coalition put together, which was really nice, was they put together examples of what each one of their goals, well-written examples in different cities of how they wrote the policy the way they think everybody else should. So it's kind of like emulating for each one of these 5 topics, and finding examples and putting them into writing. So they're putting them into a place where you can reference it. So if we go down a little bit, you can see that in Chicago, they felt like there was a very good policy on events that must have the camera on. And further down, events where you would consider turning the camera off. Also details as to when should the camera be turned off during an event. When is it appropriate to turn it off? And they believe that it is at the very, very end when when everything is finished. That's the only time when a camera should be turned off. It shouldn't be turned on and off at random times during events. So these were examples from, I believe, the Chicago department and Oakland. They had another example from Oakland and how they wrote it into place. The document is giant, and they also have examples of what they think was unideal about policies in different cities and wrote them out so that you can avoid it. And I mean, I could go on into more details with all the other sections, but as you can see, every section that they spelled out that they thought was really important for a body worn camera policy, they provided examples of cities and how they wrote it. And an explanation as to why they thought that was important. So I think it's something that we can use as almost like an outline to kind of write or propose what we think should happen in Portland. It's also an interesting time because right now there's negotiations, right, between the police association and the city and the state on how this should be done. So, and I did not have access to any of those conversations, negotiations, or considerations. So there's that too. I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Monica. Before we start our discussion, that's our next item in the agenda, we will now take a short break and come back in 10 minutes. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was in the agenda, but they say it's early. We don't have to take a break now. We can take a break later. Okay, then we can go to discussion. Let's go to discussion, and we can take a break in another 20 minutes. We're now going to start discussing the draft of PAC areas of agreement on access to information, which the subcommittee is tasked with referring to the full commission for its approval. I'll now pass it to Co-Chair Obi to explain the document we're gonna review and discuss.
Okay, so thank you. Thanks everyone for speaking. That was awesome. I think we should, just as similarly mentioned it, we should go down with each document that was submitted just one by one. I would suggest we start with compelling testimony, as that is what we started off to speaking with. And we'll go by the points that we wrote for each one, kind of discuss what that means. And then after teasing out different ideas, and we can of course take notes on it, we can then kind of have a consensus agreement about whether or not the statement should say or needs editing or needs to be looked back at again. I think we should just start and get into it.
Perfect, thank you. And before we start with the discussion, I just want to remind everyone this is an open discussion, and we ask to follow our normal discussion rules. Please be brief each time you speak, even though you can speak multiple times. Please be facilitated, and remember that the commission uses a weighted stack in our discussions. Finally, please be forward-looking in your comments. You can give a specific request for changes to the text at this time as well. Thank you, and let's start the discussion. Co-Chair Obi?
Yes, sorry about that. So yes, as you can see, there's this document is a PAC draft areas agreement for AI or for access information. So we're going to go down each one, and we are going to read out the bolded statement, and then we can have discussion. I think the writers can they have a discussion a little bit, and then please everyone, if there's any questions or any thoughts, ideas, please everyone speak up. A lot of this coming from IPR, what's already in city code, is nice, but we can clearly change it. Now is the time. Okay. So Commissioner Dan, would you like to read, or do you want me to read? I am okay with either one.
Co-Chair Obi, just a moment. The staff wants to say something. Staff?
For sure.
Yeah, thank you. Excuse me. So just to clarify, with similar to the previous fact-finding phase, the bolded section is what we're gonna be reading as we go through, as Co-Chair Obi mentioned, and that's sort of the conversation. As this is the first time the full subcommittee has seen all of this, the idea is to essentially determine if there's anything that needs to be discussed or flagged for possible removal, possible change of text, or to be possibly moved to another subcommittee's work. There are a couple things that may fit in another subcommittee, either of this phase or another. The actual consensus approval process is going to be something we do in a formal sense next week. But as Co-Chair Obi said, developing a sort of informal consensus is a good goal for today as well.
Thank you. And thank you for clarifying that information. And basically, the questions we will ask after reading, where they will read the bold section and then give time for everyone to read the rest, will be something like, do you support this information being in the document for the review of the full commission? Or do you think another subcommittee should work on it? Or we can put this part of on another place? And then if they say, any of you say, we like that, but we would like to provide changes to the text, that way we can still leave it there, is also another possibility. But yeah, now I think now we can start.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and just start reading for this one. So under compelling testimony, number 1, the new board shall have the authority and ability to compel all evidence during the course of an investigation. The board shall have the power to compel sworn members of the Portland Police Bureau and their supervisors to participate in investigations and to completely and truthfully answer all questions. Of note, before going on, in the documents that I had a part of writing, I placed the new board and capitalized, kind of the new system too, is when you see board capitalized, that's what I am referring to. Or sometimes I write the oversight board. But thanks.
Yes, Commissioner Dan, thank you, Co-Chair.
Okay, thanks. So I want to make sure that people don't lose sight of the bracketed text that's in there, that it's going to really make this whole system more efficient if the board, which is the community members, can delegate this authority to the staff. So that's, we can actually even move that to a separate sentence if people agree with that idea. And I also want, I know we've been encouraged by our facilitator to read the non-bolded text to ourselves, but the second dot down there that says, should the new board be found not to have legal authority to compel officer testimony, the Bureau of Human Resources shall act on their behalf to compel the officer. That's an example of a plan B that I was talking about, I've been talking about since we started this commission, so that if somebody, I won't say who, but if somebody challenges the authority of this board to compel officer testimony, that the Bureau of Human Resources has authority over every employee in the city of Portland, and they could compel them to testify to the new board. And then we, co-chair Ugo Oju and I looked at the charter, which has a sentence that says, the mayor, city council, auditor, and city departments, bureaus and other administrative agencies shall not interfere in the exercise of the board's independent judgment, which means by the charter that if the board tells the BHR, we need you to compel this officer, that they can't say no. That's the way I read that anyway. Okay, so thanks. That's my fuller explanation. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments about this first point from compelling testimony?
I have actually, no, I'll read.
Sure. Then Commissioner Monica and then Co-Chair Obi.
Oh, I'm sorry, Obi. So that explanation was so helpful to me. And this text is also new to me, and I have little understanding of how things of this nature work, that I would really appreciate this kind of explanation for everything, including not only the bold, but also the bottom parts of all of this text. Because if not, I'm going to glaze over, and I don't want that to happen to me. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Monica. And Co-Chair Obi.
I just wanted to echo Commissioner Handelman's point about the bracketed thing, or the authority and ability to delegate staff, because there's some things that people will need authority to do, and you don't want to run into a situation where what we want to happen is blocked because no one has like the legal or power pathways of getting something done. So maybe if there's specific staff or members associated with the board with different powers in the city to do the compelling, if that makes it faster and easier and more acceptable, that's just something to consider.
Thank you. Commissioner Sophia.
Yes, thank you. I just have a question on the first, well, anyway, on the third portion. It says, should the new board be found not to have legal authority to compel officer testimony? And I'm trying to figure out, in what case would that be? I'm trying to figure out why would it not have legal authority when it says we should have legal authority? So I'm just trying to find out what the caveats might be.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Commissioner Dan?
Yeah, well, the last time when the Independent Police Review was trying to get this authority to compel officers directly, the Police Association came to City Council and said they can't do that because they're not in our chain of command. They're not our boss. They're not part of the police bureau. They can't compel us to testify. And I guess I would, now that I've said that, I anticipate that same kind of argument being made, even though this is in the charter. I said this many times, that you can't just wave a magic wand and make those kinds of issues go away. So if that is an issue, like if there's no authority based on the fact that the new board is not the boss of the police, that's why we wrote in this Plan B, where the Bureau of Human Resources would order that until there's some other legal way to enforce the charter the way it was intended to be written.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Dan. And Commissioner Sophia, do you have an additional question or comments about that? Go ahead.
So I get that. I'm just gonna let you know, I get what you're trying to do. My thought is that sentence puts doubt on what it said that we should be able to do. And that's my concern there. If we're able to do it and it says it in the charter, we should do it. We can still use, I think, that information to say as an alternative, then we can go to the board resources, Bureau of Human Resources, whatever it is says there. I don't want to negate our power. I just don't want to do that. If we have it, we have it. If we want to use this as an alternative, I think that's a good idea. I just don't find it, we should be, it says we should have it and we should be able to get it some way, shape or form, and we'll figure out how to do that. But I do think that is a nice alternative. Thank you.
Thank you. And let me ask you, do you have suggested changes that they should be right in a different way or just, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I would say, I would just take that whole sentence out that says, should the board be found to have legal authority. It would just say, an alternative would be for the Bureau resources shall act on behalf. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional comments or suggested changes to this first compelling testimony? And I know Commissioner Dan wrote something on the chat, and you, oh, he wrote, you write how should be right. Okay, thank you. Then maybe, sure, go ahead, go ahead.
When I'm saying shall, okay, I'm just trying to think of like some of the little nuances here. Alternatively, is maybe we should say may. They may have the board do that. I think it's good to have it as an alternative and not to say should. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're not resolving all these changes, just getting them down, and that we'll appreciate it. Thank you very much. Commissioner Dan?
I'm sorry, I don't agree with removing, I mean, I understand the may, but you already said alternatively. So I think we need to have shall so that there's no question that the BHR has to compel the officer when they're asked. Okay, thank you. I see a thumbs up. So can we go back to that?
Thank you. Okay, there's
I'm sorry, I was just suggesting that at the beginning, not probably in that same, not in the shall part. Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Then do you support this information being in the document for the review of the full commission? Okay, then we can go to next one. Thank you.
Okay, number 2, refusal to truthfully and completely answer all questions may result in discipline up to and including termination. So as in this case, like something to understand the backdrop of this is when we were researching this, there's garrity warnings, and I think it's probably been mentioned before in other meetings, but it's a Supreme Court case basically saying when testimony is compelled for these sort of investigations, that your Fifth Amendment right is still protected in a criminal investigation. It's like they're kind of separating the two things, and that is that's constitutional law. Similarly, though, the Prosy versus City of New York case states that because they're separated, yes, you can plead the Fifth if there is any sort of criminal investigation going on, but you can still be in the non-criminal investigation portion. You can still be forced to talk and have discipline by higher ups, or if you're a subordinate, discipline of higher ups. So in holding with the charter that's already there, there can be discipline for not following in with this compelled testimony portion.
Thank you, Commissioner Ovi. Is there comments or questions? Yeah, Commissioner Dan?
I just realized the language that we put in for the Officer Accountability Subcommittee it's not that that subcommittee will handle discipline in these cases. That means that there's discussion of how discipline will be imposed at the other subcommittee. So just to make it clear that our subcommittee is not going to actually handle discipline. No, I think that's a good explanation, and I think it's very difficult doing this because you already referred to the Garrity warning, which is later on in the document. It kind of feels like it'd be helpful to, I don't know, summarize the points very briefly and then go back and read them in depth. So that, but it feels like people haven't had those forward-looking questions yet. But I don't know if that's helpful for us to sort of identify the key points and then go back into the in-depth.
Thank you. Okay, we can go, I think, to the third one, because did you support this information being the document for the review of the full commission? Everybody agree? Thank you. Okay, number 3.
Okay. Number 3, investigators for the new board will not subpoena a sworn bureau member employed by the Portland Police Bureau, but is authorized to direct bureau members to cooperate with administrative investigations.
Is there any, there's a change, but is there any additional comments or questions? Yes, Co-Chair Obi?
So just one additional comment is that later on, I think we're going to discuss both subpoena power and then in access to records. This is specifically, as we're writing this, that is specifically for subpoenaing an individual in parentheses quotes forceful manner. Now, subpoena power for outside citizens or subpoena power of documents that aren't necessarily given in a timely or appropriate or even hidden manner, I think that is different. And I think we'll make note of that later on. But legally wise, there is protection against a subpoena of a sworn bureau member. But there is the other pathway, of course, of compelling testimony, which will, or which does, or hopefully will hold up.
Thank you, Co-Chair. And Commissioner Tirsa, and then staff.
Oh yeah, so I compelling testimony and issuing subpoenas sort of have some sort of overlap, and I'm just wondering if this section, because I also covered this in my draft, so I'm wondering if after your explanation, Obi, I am wondering if it makes sense to include them in both, or to have this document be specifically for compelling testimony, and then the subpoena draft document that also covers this portion be the focus of this IPR city code, or included. But I think that we can come back to that once we go over the actual subpoena powers document. But I just wanted to put that in the air.
Thank you, Commissioner Tirsa, and staff.
Yes, so with relation to the section here and why there's that clarification, and Co-Chair Obi, you may be able to clarify this, but some of these sections are currently in the code already, city code already, as IPR, and are essentially, and then this is a similar conversation for those who've been watching the Officer Accountability Subcommittee, that it's essentially a proposal to keep the code section but update from IPR to the new oversight board, which would include the corresponding agency and staff. The only thing is, the subcommittee and the full commissioner have the opportunity to change it, and I think this is where Co-Chair Obi has clarified that there is a legal reason why it is the way it is, and that would be why it would be maintained. Is that an accurate clarification?
Yes. And I'll even ask Commissioner Handelman if he has the exact reference point. But I think there is protections in bargaining about this specific thing. But the compelling testimony portion is what I guess it would be more fruitful to expand on versus like the actual use of legal subpoena power on an officer.
Thank you. And now Commissioner Sophia.
I wanted to ask some clarifying questions. So the highlighted portion that's referring to the city code, that is current code? Just want to make sure that's current code. And what the code for the new board is. I just wanted to be clear. The new board, when it says subpoena power, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my words together. Subpoena power for an individual, is it there in our? Okay, I'm sorry. This is for IPR, but what about the new code and ours? Are we allowed to subpoena people? I know that there probably are some issues. Compelled documents. Okay. Including sworn members. Okay, that's what I needed to know. I needed to make sure that we're not, again, negating what we have power to do, even though there are some things currently that are not allowing that. That doesn't mean that we can't change those in the future. So I would just propose working from what we have the power to do and figuring out how to get those things that we need to get, whether it's in the new contract that comes up to change those things. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Monica. Commissioner Dan?
Okay, well, just going back to what our co-chair said a minute ago, there's a legal reason that this language says investigators will not subpoena a board member, a bureau member. Is because if a bureau member gets subpoenaed, they will say at the advice of their attorney, I refuse to cooperate on the grounds that it may incriminate me in a criminal prosecution. And that's what you and I can do, and that's what the officer can do. It's not something that we can change in the contract. It's not something we can change at all because it's a constitutional right that we all have in the Fifth Amendment. So that's why it says they're authorized to direct them to cooperate with administrative investigations. That's why it's compelling testimonies. We have a separate section about subpoenaing for other people who aren't police officers and maybe police officers from other police departments. But if you subpoena an officer who is involved in an incident like this, who might be facing criminal charges, and they say something, then whatever they say, if it gets put into the criminal investigation, then that criminal investigation can't move forward because you made them give up their Fifth Amendment right. So this is a really crucial thing, and I hope that we, I'm not sure if there's another way to phrase that to make it easier to understand, but that there's a very big difference between the subpoena power, which we're going to get to later tonight, and this power to compel officer testimony. And also, before we get on to the next section, I saw on a document that we're reviewing that it's listed as number 4, but it's supposed to be an alternative plan for this paragraph in the same way that alternatively sentence was put in before. So I just want to make sure that we don't end discussion on this point without recognizing that what was written is for that. Thank you. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. So do you want me to look at that and explain that, or the co-chair, or do you want to continue talking about the original paragraph?
Go ahead and I guess so we can have I think Commissioner Sophia wants to say something. Go ahead and finish the discussion of compelling testimony versus subpoena power, and then we'll move on to this kind of hypothetical situation.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to look at this. I'd like to take some more time to kind of go into what exactly, because I didn't do the work, you guys did, and I just wanted to be able to make comments more appropriately. So I wanted to review this and I come back to it later, because I'm still kind of confused. But I don't want to hold up the whole group for it. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. Staff?
Yes, thank you. So another thing that may be helpful to note is that in the charter, the word subpoena only appears one time, and it refers here to subpoenaing and compelling documents. And then there's the question about compelling, and that comes up in several places, as you can see here. Compelling evidence, compelling statements, compelling specifically sworn members of the police bureau to participate and investigate. And I think that distinction is maybe helpful for this particular section. This is the compelling testimony section of the document. So the subpoena question is more referenced here than designed to be resolved here, as Co-Chair Tirsa mentioned earlier. And it may be helpful to reflect and on this conversation a little bit later in today's meeting when we get to that section of the document. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then we will flag this part to continue to discuss later. That's what I understand. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and before moving on to the next point, like still referencing now the yellow highlighted portion, that was a kind of the hypothetical. Just to read that off. In the event that the board is not able to obtain compelled testimony during an interview, the bureau member's statement from a criminal investigation or applicable police reports shall be used as a substitute. When we were talking about it in our discussion, if there is some window where an IPR investigator can't have the sit down discussion of compelled testimony for some reason, there should be a substitute in place to say what in the best words possible from other sources happened based on what the officer had stated. It's clearly not ideal, but it is something versus a blank note saying officer said nothing, here's what we're going on.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Is there additional comments or question on the yellow section on number 3? Yes, staff?
Is there a reason why as a substitute was put in there? Like, does it have to be, is there a legal reason why that's an either or?
No, I don't think there's a legal reason.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, no more discussion on the yellow section. Okay, what we will do, we'll now take a break. It's 8:08 and we will come back to 8:18. Thank you. Let's continue our conversation, and the next point, we will review it. And I will pass it to co-chair, Chair Obi, because thank you.
Thank you. Number 4, compelled testimony can be done in person or in a virtual setting. This was in our discussion. One of IPR's difficulties was getting everyone who needs to be at an interview that compels testimony, like the union rep, like all legality, IA, and appropriate investigators, and the person being investigated. That is difficult, and understandably. So there should be avenues to, and actually later on at a different point, based on the current setting, these interviews should be done on a sworn bureau members during their work hours and carved out of that. So if we're fulfilling what needs to be done in an efficient way as possible, some of this should be able to be done virtually to expedite the process. I think in this day and age, it's not necessarily like an unreasonable thing to consider if it can improve efficiency of the system.
Thank you. Is there a comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner Dunn?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we put on the record that, you know, we're not trained investigators, and if there's a reason that these interviews are taking place in person about, you know, regarding body language, or, you know, to make sure that only the people who are involved are present, you know, hopefully there'll be some way to replicate that virtually. I think this is a really good idea to help speed up the process. And I'm hoping that the new board is allowed to do this. But I just want to, you know, it would be interesting to hear back from the trained investigators if there's some reason they don't do that now. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Sophia?
I was just going to make a small comment, a short comment that you know, and the new board could have, you know, as part of their staff, these folks trained to do this kind of work. So just kind of keep that in mind when we get to staffing, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. And do you support this information being in the document for the review of the full commission? Okay, thank you. We will pass to the next.
Okay, number 5, a bureau employee shall attend investigative interviews conducted by the new board, cooperate with and answer questions asked by the investigators during an administrative investigation. The discussion, this is part of the current code, and it speaks to what we would deem appropriate in the compelling testimony portion, in which we want people to appropriately and truthfully answer questions to get to the root of these investigations and making them more efficient.
Thank you. Sure, Obi. Is there any additional comment or questions? Do you support this information being in the document for the review of the full commission? Okay, thank you. We can pass to the next.
Number 6, if an employee refuses to attend an investigative interview after being notified to do so, or refuses to answer a question or questions asked during an investigative interview, the police chief or police commissioner shall direct the employee to attend the interview and answer the question or questions asked. This is current rules or current law. And based on what IPR stated, this has not been difficult, but I would actually encourage people to discuss this one. You know, it's almost the what if situation. It seems like right now this is currently working, but in the one chance that it doesn't work, what do you do? And more the second half of that statement, like who is directing these people to discuss or to attend these interviews and answer truthfully.
Thank you, Chair Obi. And now we'll pass it to Commissioner Dunn.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. First of all, this is supposed to be a sub dot to that the previous point, so it shouldn't be a separate thing. This is, you know, the Bureau shall answer the questions. You know, so But this is, if they say no, this is what might happen. And in theory, we're trying to make it so the new board operates independently of the chief and, police commissioner, or as it's mentioned in the little subsection B there, if there's going to be a city manager in the future, so that they can do this on their own. But this, again, if this is just like a plan B, like if they refuse, in theory, they should be disciplined, and that's what it already says. But this is something that we might want to include because it's already in the current code. Thanks. I hope that's helpful or not more confusing.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. We can go to the next one. And if there is no questions or suggestions to change, we'll go to the next one. But Commissioner Monica, you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I was wondering if, should we include in that as a result of not cooperating or refusing to answer questions or refusing to show up, to reiterate that, discipline can include up to termination. Is this a good place to put that in again?
Yes, Chair.
Or is that not the case? Did I misunderstand that?
No, I don't think you misunderstood it. I think that would be the case. This is kind of just like the what if portion, but I think it's implied based on the I think second or third bullet point that we have. Like, if you don't security warning approved discussion, if you don't go along with the compelled testimony of the new board, you are subject to some sort of repercussion.
Thank you. Commissioner Monica, are you okay with the way it is? So you want to suggest? Yeah, okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, we can go to the next one.
Okay, number 6. All investigator conducted interviews of Bureau employees shall be conducted in conformance with legal requirements and collective bargaining provisions. This includes reviews in use of deadly force and in custody death investigations. This reiterates what I know sometimes it seems a little bit circular, but this is reiterating what we've been saying before. So yes, we have to abide by law, and we have to abide by the collective bargaining between the city and the police bureaus. So just being an abide to it to not run into any issues. I think it's straightforward that we have to abide by the law.
Thank you. Since I don't see any questions or comments besides the comment Commissioner Dan put on the chat, we can go to the next one.
Okay. In addition to number 7, in addition to investigator interviews, compelled testimony of sworn officers can also be done in the hearing of the new board, in which the community members on the board will have direct access to the officer. This statement, before going to the lower portions, this statement is sort of suggested that investigators will have the first discussions or the first ability to compel test, or the ability to discuss with the officer when compelling testimony. But in future, when the board is at the meeting and there is an officer there, they will also have the ability to compel a testimony at the secondary phase of these investigations. Basically, a community board member isn't acutely or in specific situations going out to discuss with the officer. They're trained people to do that. And then later on, they do have the ability, though. So both staff, investigators, and community members have this ability. Community board members have this ability.
Okay, then we can go to next one. Oh, Commissioner Dan?
Well, just that language is copied from the first point. We should copy the revised language that we used.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm seeing that the staff, changed that to a hearing. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's good, a good change.
Oh, thank you. Commissioner Sophia?
I thank you. I just have a thought, thinking of as we're going through this and how many chances we're giving them to compel to testimony. I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but I'm just wondering. I don't know. I don't want to say, it's causing us to be go the whole process to be longer. And is there something we want to think about in that? I'm not saying that we shouldn't give them alternatives. I'm just saying, just thinking about that as it is in practice. How many times do we compel before, something is done? So that's just a thought, nothing to be done right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. We can go to the next now.
Right. So before pre-reading, this is current code, or taken that from current code. So number 8, prior to being interviewed, a Bureau employee will be notified of the time, date, and location of the interview, informed of the right to bring a union representative to the interview, read a statement issued, and we have brackets, issued under the authority of the police chief or police commissioner, and bracket, that the employee is directed to attend the interview, cooperate during the interview, and answer all questions fully and truthfully. And if the employee fails to attend the interview, cooperate during the interview, or answer any questions fully and truthfully, that's one long run-on sentence, the employee will be subject to discipline or discharge. And then D, provided with any other information or protections required by any applicable collective bargaining agreement.
Commissioner Sophia?
I just wanted to, when it was being highlighted, the right to bring a union representative. I don't know what the specifics are, but maybe we should spell out what they can and can't do in that meeting. I think in some of the research, sometimes there's union reps that could be there, but they're not allowed to talk. I'm just saying that maybe we should think about some restrictions on that, because there are some issues when there is a union person present. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Dunn?
Well, first of all, I saw staff highlighted the word union, and we should put that collective bargaining unit just to be consistent with what this commission has been doing. Second of all, the content of the interview is part of the Officer Accountability Subcommittee work. That we're just talking about accessing the information, not the details of what's going on. Just how to get the officer to the interview is what's going on here. And then the bracketed thing, I think our proposal was to pull that out. Is that right, Co-Chair? That we wanted to just, because they don't, again, as Commissioner Glenn was saying, that the new board doesn't have to use the authority of the chief or commissioner to compel the officer. So I think we should just cut that language out, and the sentence makes sense without it.
I think that's reasonable too.
Thank you. And your suggestion was on point B to add bring a collective bargaining union? What was your suggestion? Commissioner Dan?
Oh, yeah, it should replace the word union with collective bargaining unit, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we can go to the next one.
Okay, number 9. In use of deadly force cases, responding investigators shall have the ability to compel testimony once the criminal investigators have completed their interview. This is in response, kind of one of the automatic responses, in which if there is a use of deadly force case that it's automatically reviewed. This is partially derived from their own the Bureau's own practices, in which in one of these events they should, in best case scenario, have to give a statement for themselves or for their own records within a short amount of time. And I, just based on our discussions, I think that the new board or the investigators for the new board should be able to start the discussion or start the compelled testimony early. Now, there's a time if there's any sort of criminal look into these specific cases, that the criminal proceeding has to go before the the new board investigation. But I think it's important, based on people's recollection of things, if there is early access, and then later on can continue the investigation once allowed to.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Then we can go to the next one.
And these are just some extra points. I think for number 10, we were like, do we need to spell out the limitations of compelled testimony in regards to federal and state law? We partially have done that with kind of discussion of garrity warnings. That's the main thing, but that is just a discussion point. Number 11, should we include specific direction to make sure that the investigations do not leak or influence the district attorney's criminal investigation? Part of the protections that any Bureau member has is that they are completely separate, as kind of before. Criminal is completely different from investigational practices. So do we need any specific protections so that the board's work is above reproach, per se? It's not discreetly written now, but I think it's just kind of accepted now because of all the other federal law. And then number 12, do we need a timing section in this? Definitely up for discussion for everyone. Is there a certain amount of time an officer has to respond to compelled testimony? Compelled testimony in deadly force cases, and then we'll take a look at that. But based on Directive 1010 or 1010.10, this is kind of 48-hour discussion that we were discussing before. Like in a deadly force case, you have like within 48 hours time to have a report back to their superiors, or report back to make a visual report with the Bureau. Should there be a timing in regards to compelled testimony? I think we would agree that it should be done expeditiously, but should there be a specific thing that has to be done, since this is a mandated review in these deadly force cases, or death in custody cases too?
Thank you, Chair Obi. Okay, we can go to the next subpoena power.
Sure, I'll go ahead and read these, and of course, Commissioner Pierce, please chime in. So subpoena power, number 1. The Oversight Board shall have the authority to obtain information to effectively conduct investigations.
Commissioner Dan?
Is that a direct quote from the charter?
I don't think so. I don't think so. There may be like similar language, but I don't think I directly got that from IPR city code.
Thank you, Commissioner Tirsa. Is there any suggestions or changes to make to number 1? No, okay, we can go to the next one.
Number 2, the Oversight Board shall have the authority to issue subpoenas for the purpose of compelling witness testimony to fully and thoroughly investigate a complaint or conduct a review.
We can move to the next one.
The new board shall have the authority to issue subpoena ducis tecum for the testimony and the production of records. And then sub quotes, including and not limited to video recordings, audio reports, and all evidence pertinent to an investigation. A point that I made when I did access to police records, I have a similar thing written. Basically, if police records are not easily or not reasonably maintained or being withheld, that's when a subpoena power not to a sworn member of the Portland Police Bureau, but to an actual electronic or paper record. I think that does actually fall under subpoena power, since it would be a subpoena necessary. I would just want to clear that one by like a city attorney or something to see if that muddies any line. And then again, because we've been discussing it, just because it's current code now doesn't mean it's necessarily code for the new board in the future.
Commissioner Tirsa?
The section right after that sort of talks about having the assistance of a city attorney's office with and like issuing subpoenas and subpoena ducis tecum as well. But yeah, I would also like to hear from someone from the office of the city attorneys on this matter.
Thank you, Commissioner Tirsa, and I will pass it to staff.
Yeah, we can definitely request some assistance there. And an appearance by someone from the city attorney's office at a future meeting. Deputy City Attorney Sarah Ames, who comes to our meetings, is unable to be here today, but certainly by next week we should be able to get either her or another member of the city attorney's office. And that, with relation to the to number 4, it may be helpful also to specify that the board may also have independent legal counsel to assist in this at some point. Maybe not in this exact section, but yeah.
Thank you, staff. I will pass to Commissioner Tirsa.
Yeah, that was something that I was wondering whether how if the new oversight board, because we haven't got into that portion yet, whether the new oversight board will have direct legal counsel or whether the city attorney's office will be of assistance. And obviously we have not assigned something yet or spoken about that yet. So yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Tirsa. Commissioner Dan?
Thanks. Yeah, but I do believe that in the research phase, we agreed collectively that we wanted the new board to have independent legal counsel. So I think that would be good to put it in here. I'm also, I think, and I don't know how we're going to, discuss this tonight, but we were talking about what can we do to make it so that if a community member has to be subpoenaed so that the board can get the information they need, that they don't get punished by a court in a way that puts them into a jail cell, right? So we have to maybe make a note that the idea is not to incarcerate the people, but to compel them to cooperate somehow, other than the threat of being in jail. I don't know what that would be, but I think that's a value that many of the commissioners have expressed. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Dan. Commissioner Tirsa, would you like to add something else?
Yeah, I know there's like certain, like if someone's not able to testify or attend, there's like certain reasons in the Oregon statute as to why they can be excused. And so I'm also like wondering, after Commissioner Dan's comment, if there should be like a way for, if someone does not subpoena, if there's like other options, or if the person subpoenaed can communicate that they are not able to or not willing to, and other ways to go around compelling them to testify.
Thank you. Commissioner Sophia?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to, because I think I wasn't paying enough attention to make sure that Samir, Tirsa, and Dan's comments were somewhere in the document, so we can remember those when we come back to them at either this point or our future meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, staff.
Yeah, I think and everyone's screen is differently shaped, so I'm not sure what's visible or not, but there are comments to the right side and track changes, which will be in the version that gets recirculated. I don't know if everything got captured in that, so if there's something specific, please feel free to point that out, but hopefully that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Yes, Commissioner Tirsa?
Oh, I was going to jump to number 5 and 6, but I'll wait until we move on to those.
I think we can move to number 5 and 6 now.
Okay. So 5 and 6, I would probably cross those out because as Commissioner Dan previously mentioned, the contract, the PBB contract does not like allow for, and correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Dan, from what I understood earlier, that an officer cannot be subpoenaed for testimony. So these number 5 and 6. Even though if that was an option, I think that would be something great for the new oversight board to have the authority to do, but due to the PPP contract, it seems like that's not really an option.
Thank you. Commissioner Sophia and then Commissioner Dan.
Thanks, Commissioner Tirsa. I understand where you're coming from, but my thought is forward-looking. If we have the power, or if we want the power, we should ask for it. And contracts can be changed. So I'm just suggesting that we do not limit ourselves to ask for what we want and what we need, and then find a way to get to that. I know there's going to be barriers everywhere. That's just the way it is. But I know the current contract probably has that in it. I'm not debating that, but doesn't mean the future one will. So keep our spirits and sights high as we can. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Tirsa, oh no, Commissioner Tirsa, and then Commissioner Dan, and then the staff.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate those comments, Commissioner Sophia. And I think my immediate response to have those crossed out is because I'm not sure if we it will be able to by the time that we have to present our proposed plans to council. It will have time to even bring this up to PPP or have that be something that they can negotiate. But yeah, I mean, I would love to leave this in, and I would love to, but I just don't know if there are any limitations because of that, of the PPP contract.
Thank you. Commissioner Dan?
Okay, well, so Commissioner Oriana, you asked if it was the contract. It is not the contract. This is not about the contract. This is because it is not advisable or a legally good idea to subpoena a police officer, because they have the right to say, I do not have to answer your questions because I plead the Fifth Amendment. And that will be the end of the interview, and that's that. So if a court takes them in, that's what would happen. It happened in 1988 when the old oversight board tried doing that with some officers. The power to compel testimony is far stronger than the power to subpoena an officer, because they say, if you don't answer our questions, we're going to fire you. So that's your choices. You can answer our questions or you're fired. So I think that it's a wise idea to pull these out. We have dealt with this issue in the power to compel testimony section, and that the subpoenas should not try to be applied to a police officer for legal reasons. It has nothing to do with the contract. I hope that's clear, but I can try to get somebody in who can say it in a different way from me if that's helpful. But that's the way things are. That's the legal system. If you bring the court in and say, officer, you have to answer this question, they'll say, I plead the Fifth, and that will be the end of it. So.
Thank you. Staff, and then I will pass it to.
Yeah, I think thank you for all the clarifications. I understand why that applies to number 5. I'm a little curious as to why that would apply to number 6. Due to it says testimony. I think the idea was that they were originally kind of one idea, but just wanted to clarify if there was something missed there that might be helpful for people to know. Because is it just that the fact that it's in the subpoena power section? Okay, I'm seeing nodding. Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Thank you. Commissioner Sophia?
Just one little comment. Because we have the power doesn't mean we have to use it. 1, 2, if we use it, we don't know what people will do. I mean, you're just assuming that that's what they're going to do, and we don't know. So my whole point is, if we use it, if we need to use it, we will. If we don't need to use it, we won't. If someone pleads the Fifth when we feel like we need to use it, so be it. I know there's some consequences possibly for that, but why throw tools out of your toolbox?
Thank you. Oh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sophia. I wanna let everybody know this 8:53. Let's move to number 6. We will try to finish number 8. That way we can go to public comment. Number 6.
Okay, number 6. The testimony of a sworn officer or employee of the Bureau is subject to due process and confidentiality provisions applicable in state and federal law. Yes, and it might also kind of overlap with data section as well, but yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Chair Obi.
And then 7 as well, as staff is writing right now. Records obtained by the new oversight board shall remain confidential. Yes, agreed. Records obtained, police, health records should remain confidential, and there should be a manner to do so. Yeah, it also will overlap with data, but keep it in here for now. We can delete it later on if it doesn't match over. You know, specifically if there is subpoenaed records, those should remain confidential as well. So it's like it's not negative.
Thank you, Chair Obi. Commissioner Dunn?
Yeah, I think that would only apply to records that are already confidential. Like if they were just having a hard time getting information, and somebody wasn't forking it over, and they subpoena it, and it's still a public record and a public document, and it's a transparent system. I think it should only apply to confidential things that are confidential in the first place. Am I making sense?
Yes, that completely makes sense. Yeah, the things that like should remain confidential, like health records or sensitive information that the new board has access to, those should remain confidential. Yeah, other records that are out in the public eye should stay out in the public eye, but safely recorded or safely kept in the new board's records.
Thank you. Now we can pass to 8.
Any person who fails to comply with a subpoena will be subject to contempt proceedings as prescribed by state law, provided that such persons shall not be required to answer any question or act in violation of rights under the constitutions of the state or of the United States. I do think this is mentioned before in the comments, that when we're for subpoenaing individuals of the community, it's like to not have a punitive action against them. I think we should look into and discuss different manners of making subpoena power in a proverbial term have some teeth, but not to punish people who shouldn't necessarily be punished for their own speaking or testimony or lack of speaking.
Thank you. Before we go to public comment, Chair Obi, do you have a comment of the from the document or of the document?
Yeah, no, I mean, thank you for the work that everyone's put in. This is, I think, a great start. We'll talk more about what the future looks like, but just wanted to make sure that things that are written here that we'll be discussing in the next meeting, as well as like referring to the main committee, are things that are within the power of the new board, or of us to suggest and the new board to do. Specifically, like, I'm looking at a lot of the research that was done, and looking at the body cam research that hopefully we can take a look at soon. But a lot of those suggestions are fantastic. It's just our new board, or our specific subcommittee and our new board is still looking at access to those things. So what we want to put on this document is making sure that the access that this board has to these specific subsections is in keeping with what their power is and how to make them efficient, how to make it efficient, safe, and in the end equitable to everyone involved in the system. But kind of discussed in the subcommittee meeting with Commissioner Hardesty, it's like we have a lot of things to do. We have a lot of scope in this subcommittee and in others and in the whole PAC, but some of the things we can't do, it's like we can't necessarily influence city or state policy from this section other than making recommendations. So as we kind of do this research over the next week or so, I think we should hone in on just exactly what this subcommittee is going to bring to the main table coming up in a couple of weeks.
Thank you, Chair Obi. Now we will pass to public comment. We will invite the public to make comments regarding what we discussed tonight in the subcommittee. and also to share any story they want to share with us. We just ask the public to keep their comments to 2 minutes and also to raise their hands if they want to make a comment. Now I invite the public if they want to make any comments. I don't think we have any comments. Then we will pass it to next steps.
Yes, thank you. Co-Chair Obi, do you mind if I go first on this one? Okay, thank you. So the next meeting of the subcommittee is scheduled for next Thursday, the 5th of January. And so, excuse me, yeah. We'll have draft sections on all 5 of the subsections to put into the draft areas of agreement. Already, you've seen a lot of that. We've gone through about half of a little just shy of half of the document in some detail, but it was a sort of longer half, if that makes sense. So for those sections which we've reviewed today, there'll be a sort of cleaned up version of that sent out. And this will be recirculated by staff after the meeting tonight. Please reply with your changes in any suggestions you may have in track changes or in comment form. Probably looking at by next Tuesday in order to allow for that to be collated or put into a new document and recirculated again, so that everyone has at least a couple days to read it before next Thursday's meeting. For the sections we haven't yet reviewed, if you've been working on it, please feel free to update it and send it in as well. Since we haven't looked at it yet, there's no problem with updating it if you'd like. And there's no particular need for anyone to volunteer for a drafting group or anything like that the way we have the last couple of weeks, but just if you could individually look at everything within the document and just give any comments that you have on it. No need for new items necessarily, just to kind of react to it. And I have one other thing, but I think I'll pause here if there are any questions on any of that, just in terms of the timeline. The other thing I wanted to mention is because the full commission met December 8th and doesn't meet again until January 19th, the PAC is in the process of choosing a second co-chair for this subcommittee via an online ballot that was circulated to all members of the commission. We do not yet have enough responses. And I know, and you all know as well, that both Commissioner Sophia and Commissioner Dan are able and willing to help take on this work and support Co-Chair Obi. So if you have not filled it out yet, please fill out the online ballot tonight so that we can get a second co-chair and get fully staffed up for the work that needs to get done in the next week or so. And yeah, just wanted to give that reminder because we don't yet have sufficient participation to kind of call it. So yeah. With that, I'll pass it back to Co-Chair Obi or to Victoria.
Co-Chair Obi, would you like to make a comment?
No, just once again, thank you for everyone's participation today. I think this is very helpful. It's tough to gauge how fast things will go, but I think this is a very good start. I think it's very important that in this 1 week, it might be the most emailing / looking at documents portion of this subcommittee. So, if everyone could, follow the emails. I know it's still in the holiday season, following the emails, responding with ideas. I think it's very fruitful when we had discussion, and like to continue that kind of just up and running at our next meeting.
Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. And now this is the time for co-chairs and the staff to summarize any items already brought up today which didn't fit into today's agenda. We'll recap those items here and use them in developing future agendas. We won't be using this time to add new items not previously mentioned or to discuss any items, but we will use this list to develop future agendas so these items can be addressed. For the garden plot, Co-Chair Obi, do you have anything you would like to add?
Just the cross-pollination between subcommittees. I know some of the things that we're working on might overlap into other groups. That's why it's great that, you know, we have a full co-chair here, as well as other people who do multiple subcommittees too. So just to keep that in mind as well, that some of these things are going to be referred to, and we should be, I think we're at less risk of hurting anything else some other groups say, or other subcommittees say, or other portions of the main document say. But just be, you know, cognizant that some things will overlap, and we should meld the ideas together so that we don't step on each other's toes.
Thank you. Thank you, Co-Chair Obi. Staff?
Yeah, just one item, the question about what the city attorney's office is able to assist with in terms of enforcing subpoena power was something that was flagged for the garden plot earlier. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we just want to reminder everyone that now you can submit advanced public comment to the Police Accountability Commission via web form, voicemail, or postal mail. Thank you to all the members who attended today's meeting and for your contributions today. Thank you also to the interpreters. Finally, thank you to the members of the community for attending and contributing with questions. If you're not already signed for email updates, please also sign up to receive updates from the PAC. The next meeting of the subcommittee will be the next Thursday, January 12th. It's now 9 p.m. and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.